The first Grand Prix of 2025 is over. The Australian Grand Prix has just happened, and well, you could say it was chaotic. Waking up at the marvellous time at 4 a.m. in the UK to witness drivers crash out of formation laps, crash out on the opening laps, multiple safety cars, and the first win of the season for Lando Norris. But in today's video, I'm going to be brutally rating every single driver at the Australian Grand Prix. Now, like the disclaimer, this is my own opinion. You can form your own opinion and leave your thoughts down in the comments below. But let's begin with the Red Bull pairing. So, Max Verstappen, he qualified third behind the two McLarens, and he also finished the race in second place. Probably the maximum points he would have got this weekend. And he also finished a second within Lando Norris. Maybe with the help of safety cars, but you can make up your mind. Max Verstappen has proved that he is the king of wet weather racing. His saves, such as his save in the pit lane and multiple times during laps between lap number 44 and 48, you need to see those laps to see how good Max Verstappen is in the rain. And I think he got the maximum out of the car again. I'm not sitting here saying, oh, it's like the 5th best car, but it's definitely up there. And I think Max Verstappen, once again, extracting everything out of the car he possibly can. So for that reason, I'm giving Max Verstappen a 9. The only real mistake he made this weekend was obviously him pushing the tyres too much, missed the braking zone, and obviously Piastri overtaking him. But apart from that, nothing else Max Verstappen could have done. So a 9 out of 10. And then you go all the way to the other side of the spectrum. You get Lawson. Liam Lawson really struggled this weekend at the Australian Grand Prix. He already stated that it's a track that he's never been to and he might find difficult, and well, he definitely did. He qualified 18th in that Red Bull car, while his teammate obviously qualified 3rd. He also DNF'd during the race. Obviously, wet weather racing, it's hard to judge a rookie as much as others, but he's already had races. And I can't help to feel that this was a really disappointing weekend for Liam Lawson. I was really hoping he stepped up and proved people wrong, proving that he should have that seat. But the likes of Yuki Tsunoda really shined through this weekend. So I'm going to have to be really harsh on him, give Liam Lawson a 2. I think really bad mistakes, poor qualifying, poor races. It took him like 10 laps just to overtake the Haas, which is by far the slowest car right now. So I'm going to give Liam Lawson a 2 out of 10. We are now moving on to the Sauber pair. I'm going to start with Gabriel Bortolotto. I thought Gabriel Bortolotto, obviously with him DNFing, I can't give him a super high score, but for a rookie for his first race of the season, really showed that he has great potential and proving once again Helmut Marko wrong of him just being a B tier driver, a C tier driver, whatever rubbish Helmut Marko is saying nowadays. Gabriel Bortolotto, got into Q2 with that Sauber car, which is a phenomenal achievement. Obviously, the Sauber car is not one of the best cars right now, but that is definitely a phenomenal achievement to get into Q2 in his first ever F1 qualifying session. And he was showing some real good pace before him crashing. He was doing well in the wet weather. He was showing some good pace, showing some strong, consistent laps. Unfortunately, eventually, he crashed the car, but I think he's showing good potential. I can't give him a super high score, but I'm going to give Gabriel Bortolotto for his first ever F1 race a 6 out of 10. Next up, we've got Nico Hülkenberg. It was not looking like a good weekend for Nico. Qualified 17th behind his new rookie teammate, but he definitely made up for it for a very decently impressive showing in the race where he finished 7th with that Sauber car, making them already have more points than they did overall last season. Now, you could say it's a bit of luck, some crashes happen, so that managed to get him up there. But for a car that's not very good, he kept it within the limits, he kept it on track, and he delivered a very solid overall performance for the Sauber car. We didn't really see much of Nico Hülkenberg the whole race, but he was consistent, and he got the points that are needed. He got 6 total points for the Sauber team, more than the 4 they got last season. So I'm going to give Nico Hülkenberg a 7 out of 10 for this week. Next up, we're moving on to the Aston Martin pair. Now, we're going to start off with Fernando Alonso. Qualifying went alright. He made a bit of a costly mistake, which cost him getting into Q3, which caused him to start 12th. But during the race, he was showing some real good pace. He was looking to get into the points, and I think his race was looking solid. But he made such a rookie error. Obviously, we all know that Fernando Alonso is a rookie, and he can't help that. But it's a bit of a rookie error. He's supposedly supposed to be really good in the wet, but he just made a bit of an error. 2 errors cost him, one, a Q3 appearance, and also cost him the race overall. He managed to get no points for the team, whilst his teammate, Lance Stroll, did. So overall, I'm going to have to give Fernando Alonso a 5 out of 10. Definitely had showed good promise with that Aston Martin car that I thought would be really weak. But ultimately, 2 mistakes cost him dearly. And moving on to Lance Stroll. Now, obviously, qualifying again, didn't do anything special. Got 13th in a car that looks okay. But for once, no mistakes were made from Lance Stroll, especially in the wet weather. Compared to last year's Brazil, where obviously we saw him bin it in the formation lap and then beats the car on the gravel. He showed real maturity out there. You know, he kept it on track, no mistakes were shown, not to my knowledge, and he kept it within the lines and not into a wall. And that caused him to get a 6th place finish for Aston Martin, which is huge for the start of the season. I don't think it was anything special from Lance Stroll, but I am going to give him a 7 out of 10. A solid race from him. Bit lucky, but a 6.5 or a 7 for him.
Make your mind up.
Next up, we're going to talk about the Haas pairing. What can I say? I feel bad for the drivers because last year Haas looked really promising, getting good qualifying results. But that's not the case this year, unfortunately. I think they are the slowest car on the grid. And now first, we're going to talk about Esteban Ocon. Qualified 19th, finished the race in 13th, which doesn't sound terrible, but considering 6 drivers DNF and the only other driver on the track was his teammate, it's not great. But considering he was in the slowest car, I don't think Ocon did anything bad. He didn't do anything great, but I don't think he did anything bad. It was just a okay race for the guy that's in the slowest car right now. So I'm going to give Esteban Ocon a 5.5 out of 10. Nothing terrible, nothing great. And now moving on to the other rookie, Ollie Bearman. Now, I'm only really talking about qualifying and racing. I'm not really going to talk about free practice, but what an awful opening weekend it was for Ollie Bearman. Crashed in FP1. I don't think he got a chance in FP2. Spun in FP3. Didn't even start qualifying because of a gearbox issue. And then the race just kind of was there. The main thing that I would give praise for is that he kept on track. He's one of the only 2 rookies to actually finish the race. So that's brilliant. Much better than his Brazil performance last year where he slid around, made multiple mistakes during the race. The race is where it matters and he did okay. But I can't give him above Ocon because Ocon, you know, did slightly better than Bearman. Bearman just made a few mistakes along the way that cost him. So I'm going to give Olive Bearman probably a 5 out of 10, which I think is fair. Next up, we're going to talk about the Mercedes pairing. I'm going to start off with George Russell. If you told me that George Russell actually got on the podium and actually qualified P4 this weekend, I wouldn't have told you so because Russell went very under the radar, which always seems to be the case with George Russell. Flying under the radar but producing a phenomenal performance, an underrated performance. He managed to get on the podium again with a clean, good race from him that we didn't really get to see on TV because he was never shown. It was a quiet but extremely consistent, good race from him, and also got the maximum out of the car in qualifying by finishing P4, which is an excellent result from him. I think I'm going to give George Russell an 8.5 out of 10. A really good weekend from him overall. And now we've got to talk about the sensation, the 18-year-old that is Kimi Antonelli. What started off as a dreadful weekend, he made an error that cost him floor damage, that made him qualify 16th position. It ended up being such an amazing weekend with him finishing P4. Now, I would acknowledge that he made an error at the start of the race, you know, spun completely, which could have cost him massively if this was just a normal race. But it was a wet weather race. Lots of safety cars, lots of DNFs. But some of the moves he made, oh my word. The fact that that overtake on Alex Albon towards the end of the race was magnificent, especially with how wet the track was. The fact that he's 18-year-old, managed to get P4 in his first ever race, or his first ever F1 race, I should say, and just managed to keep it out of the walls like most of the other rookies couldn't. I'm going to give him an 8.5, the same as George Russell. Really good weekend for the Mercedes pairing, considering I don't think anyone was really expecting too much from them this weekend. Next up, we're going to move on to the V-Carb, or RB, whatever you want to call them, team. I'm going to start off with Yuki Tsunoda. Wow, what a qualifying performance from Yuki out of basically nowhere. RB didn't look like they had really any pace in, you know, the practice sessions, the testing during Bahrain. But out of nowhere, qualified P5. That qualifying performance deserved a 10 out of 10. And the race was so unfortunate for Yuki. He deserved such good point positions, but the team made a costly error, didn't pit him in time, and eventually he finished P12, which is not deserved. He had a really good race as well. So Yuki, I'm going to give a 6.5. I know he didn't finish in the points, but he drove fantastically for most of the race. He qualified really well. I would give him higher, but unfortunately the team let him down, so I can't give him much higher. But Yuki, you're looking great, man. Carry on, and you're going to get that Red Bull seat one day. I'm moving on to his teammate, Isaac Hadjar. Oh, this is the most emotional one to talk about. He qualified the best out of all the rookies, even such as Liam Lawson's in the Red Bull, Kimi's in the Mercedes. He qualified P11, so close to getting to Q3 as well. But the race, he crashed on the formation lap. Such an emotional time for him. Helmut Marko again slating him, calling it embarrassing. Big ups Anthony Hamilton for that beautiful moment, consoling him, giving him motivation to try and do better next time. Pick your head up and keep moving forward. But what rating am I going to give him? It's going to have to be on 4.5, I'm afraid. Crashing formation lap isn't great, especially for your debut race. You know, he did great qualifying, but I can't say much else. Unfortunately, it's a 4.5, but he does look really promising. That is a good sign. Next up, we're going to go with the McLaren pair. I'm going to start off with Oscar Piastri. Qualified P2, super close to getting his first pole position, just under 0.1 seconds, or 10th of the second behind Lando Norris, basically. And he drove 55 beautiful laps at the Grand Prix, but one mistake cost him dearly. Obviously, going off the track, he couldn't quite get back on the track like Lando did, and unfortunately, that cost him a potential win and definite podium position. But what I loved about it is that didn't stop him. He didn't DNF, he got back on track, and he still got a P9. He did some amazing overtakes. That overtake on Hamilton was absolutely beautiful. That mistake cost him dearly, but I'm still going to give Oscar Piastri, I believe I'm going to give him an 8 out of 10 still. It was a phenomenal weekend. One mistake, one lap cost him dearly, but he still drove beautifully. You can't take that away from the homeboy from Australia. And next up, Lando Norris, the winner of the Grand Prix. And I'm going to give him a 9.25 out of 10. I've got to give him slightly higher than Max Verstappen, just because he won the race in the end. And yes, I know there's going to be comments, he's in a rocket ship, etc., etc. But when it's wet weather racing, that kind of goes out the window. It's all about skills. And obviously you could say he made a mistake, he went off track. But then he redeemed himself, and instead of crashing or losing the car, he did well. He steered completely right to get back onto the track and then slowed himself down to go take the corner, unlike what Oscar Piastri did. Lando Norris proved a lot of people wrong. He got pole position, which I think some people were expecting, but he held the race lead there. But not only that, he held the race for 3 restarts from safety cars as well. So 4 times he managed to keep the lead. And with his great ingenuity of when to switch tyres, he got a P1 and he finished the race first. So I'm going to give him a 9.25. Next up, we're going to go with Alpine. I'm going to start off with Jack Doohan. Qualified P14, getting into Q2, which is a very good result indeed, but he was quite a bit behind his teammate, 5 places down compared to Pierre Gasly, who eventually got into Q3. And once again, I can't say much. Could he crash on the opening lap? It's really unfortunate because I think for Jack Doohan, it's going to cost him more than others because Colapinto is literally right behind him, potentially getting that seat. And I think this could be costly for Jack Doohan. I'm going to have to give him a 4 out of 10, I'm afraid. Nothing special. Qualifying was solid, but quite a bit behind his teammate and crashed on the opening lap. There's not much else to say. And then to his teammate, Pierre Gasly. Solid qualifying performance, qualifying in P9. Really good solid performance in him. And was so close to getting points. But one big mistake cost him points that weekend near the end of the race where Hamilton, Piastri, Charles Leclerc all took advantage and overtook him. Which is unfortunate. I thought he did a decent race, but I'm going to have to give him a 6 out of 10. Solid, but nothing great. And next up, we're going to move on to the Williams side. Starting off with Carlos Sainz. Qualified P10 in his first Williams qualifying session, which is a solid amount, but a good amount behind Alex Albon in terms of qualifying position, in terms of time as well. He finished quite a bit behind Alex Albon. And then eventually he crashed. He was the only experienced person, not including Fernando Alonso because he's a rookie. He's the only experienced person there that managed to crash during the wet weather, and that's unfortunate. The reason why I'm going to give him this rating, though, is what went on behind the scenes. James Fowles already came out and talked about it and said He was a very important piece behind the strategy of when to change tyres, when to do this, when to do that. And that obviously got Alex Albon his incredible P5 position. So, for Carlos Sainz, I'm going to give a 5.5. Maybe a little bit high, but I think that experience to do the strategy calls and that does have to give him a boost of rating. And I'm going to talk about my personal MVP of the weekend, Alex Albon. Wow. Phenomenal. Qualified P6 in a Williams, beating both Ferraris, his teammate as well. No one expected it. Everyone thought Carlos Sainz would be up there, but no. Alex Albon proves that he can hang with the best. Not only that, a phenomenal race from him as well, finishing P5. So not only did he finish P6, he managed to do even better in the race and get P5. My personal favourite driver of the weekend, the best driver of the weekend, he gets my highest rating of a 9.5 out of 10. And moving on to probably the biggest flops of the weekend, the Ferrari pair. Now, I can't fully blame both of them. The Ferrari strategies were awful. They completely messed up the whole weekend. But let's start with Charles Leclerc. I'm going to give Charles Leclerc a 6 out of 10. Qualified P7, finished P8. Unfortunately, Ferrari messed it around. But I still feel like he could have done more himself. He's already blamed himself, already came out and said, I could have done this, I could have improved this. It's the opening weekend. Luckily, there's 23 more races for Ferrari to really improve. But it's not looking great, was it? I think Charles Leclerc did okay. He had some good pace at times, some good speed at times. But ultimately, it was a disappointing weekend. So I'm going to give Charles Leclerc a 6. Lewis Hamilton. His first ever race for Ferrari, and it did not go how everyone expected. He qualified P8 behind Charles Leclerc, and he finished P10. He even got overtaken by Oscar Piastri right on the last lap as well, which means he finished P10, only gaining one single point for Ferrari for his first race in Australia. I'm going to give Lewis Hamilton a 5.5. I can't give him too much lower because like the 5s and that is giving people who DNF'd. But I was expecting so much more for Ferrari. Their strategy calls were awful. I think the drivers weren't quite up to scratch with the usual quality we see from them. But I think there'd be better things to come. But for this weekend, I'm going to give Lewis Hamilton a 5.5. So, those are my brutal ratings for F1 drivers during the Australian Grand Prix. What do you guys think? Comment down below what ratings you would give each driver. I would love to have a discussion with you all in the comments below. That's it for this video. So, ciao ciao. I'll see you on the next one.